Okay, we are live on YouTube, so anyone that's watching on YouTube, then hello, and we'll be with you in just a moment. We're just waiting for the radio listeners to join us. Fair to Damien, he's probably wearing the best attire he could tonight.
What's the score at half time in that one?
I think it was 1-0.
All right.
1-0, so, yeah.
Doing well, isn't they?
Yeah, they're at the moment, but I'm not getting too carried away with it, to be honest. Keep one game at a time.
You know how quick it changes, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll be here in a second. So yeah, for just for viewers, we're just waiting for the radio listeners to sync and join us. This should be any second now.
So you're not psychic.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our listeners and viewers around the world. And a cameo appearance there for our viewers for a dog. We'll come on to that in a minute. Welcome to the Grassroots Football Show here on East London Radio and our YouTube channel. It is Thursday, the 13th of October. It's been a busy couple of obviously weeks. Thanks to obviously Pete for stepping in last week because I had some things on. But joining us, is this the first time you've been on this season, Damo?
It is,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought I'd been given a sack.
2 months into the season, you're finally here. How you doing anyway, Damo?
Yeah. All good, mate. All good. How's yourself?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And would you like to introduce us to your obviously the viewers to your little friend that's sitting there behind you?
And my little furry friend. This is the famous Woody. Very famous over the years. He's asleep at the moment, doing what he usually does. I'm sure he'll wake up later on if the viewers and listeners want to see him. He'll be awake soon. Don't worry.
Definitely. And obviously pushing the buttons is Ian, of course.
Evening.
And joining us, I'm very delighted for him to be here this evening. Although he says he is feeling tender, and we'll come on to that in a minute. It's the House of Town manager, Mark McLean. How you doing, Mark?
Evening, Adam. You okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Just getting over last night and the bad result the Rangers had, but yeah. If this show was this morning, I don't think I'd have come on.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, but that's it. Thanks very much for being here. Just gonna quickly. I'm not gonna obviously depress you for too long, but as someone who has always respected Rangers Football Club, I'm not just saying that, but someone has to keep an eye on their results and follow them now because my other half's a big Rangers fan and Liverpool. Charlotte, if you're watching and listening, yeah, I know how you're feeling. I've been there. Yeah, not a great night at the office for Rangers at all, but they started off well, and then, like we were just saying off air about the golfing class.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, we scored first, and the signs were all positive. We were trying to get balls in behind, sometimes sort of over hitting, but hitting areas that were at least taking the problem away. But once we started to shorten the game up and allowed them an easy equaliser, I think we just kind of fell apart and stopped competing. So, regardless of the golfing class, the minimum was to compete, But I mean, obviously, football's relevant, and my Halstead boys done a similar thing at Buckhurst a few weeks ago. So I am aware that it can happen when you allow good teams to get an easy into the game. They can take you apart. So that's football, Adam. But it was a tough watch for sure. Yeah.
Damo, did you see any of it?
I was watching it. My wife Lisa, obviously Spurs fan, so she was watching the Spurs game, and she thought myself, what game should I pick? And I picked the Rangers game. I watched it, and yeah, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, you know, literally, I walked away from the watching it on my phone for a little while, and all of a sudden it was like 4-1, 5-1, 6-1. It was just, you know, just couldn't believe the score, to be honest. And, you know, I would be a bit disappointed if I was a Rangers fan because, to be quite honest, I thought it was going to be a closer game, to be fair, but it wasn't. So, but Liverpool got that bit of class, haven't they? I mean, no disrespect to Rangers, but I think Rangers lost a couple of the good players last year to Ajax and Southampton, the two guys. And it's just one of the things, really. But it's a great achievement to actually be in the group stages, isn't it? And with Celtic as well. I mean, obviously, you know, you wouldn't want Celtic to do well, and I don't know like they're doing well. But no, I mean, it's hard when you've got you're up against the teams you're up against. So, but I thought it might have been a bit more closer game than what it was, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's happened a couple of times to Rangers this season, you know, with big loss at Parkhead. The last 2 times we've gone there. Something at Gerrard sort of endeared himself to the Rangers support because his record in the Old Firm games was outstanding. I don't think he lost one. So whereas Gio's come in and he's not won one. On the flip side, I don't think, and with the 2 heavy beatings. So when you back that up with a defeat like that to Liverpool, it's putting pressure on the guy, you know, and he knows what he's doing, but there's certainly a change in mentality when we go behind. Well, it's not good now.
It just seems like you put the nail on the head there, Mark, because obviously last night, then you mentioned them 2 Celtic games. It just seems to me that, and I've watched a few Rangers games with the missus, and it just feels like these big games, these big occasions, Rangers can't cope with those big games and big occasions. It just seems like that. I might be wrong, but
you say that, but we went to the Europa League final last year and we beat Dortmund and Leipzig and Braga, and they were brilliant performances. They were just fearless, but there's an element of fear there, and that needs to go quickly because you don't get away with that in Glasgow. So you can't play like that. You know, you can lose, but you got to lose in a certain way. So he's going to unravel himself if he allows that to continue. So yeah, but we know how hard football is, Adam. As I say, it happens with my boys, and sometimes you stand watching them and you can't relate to them. But yeah, it's happening too much in big games at the moment, anyway.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
Could be worse. I'm a Hibs fan, so.
Yeah, it could be much worse then.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll obviously go on to everything non-league football now, and it's been interesting. It's been a very interesting season so far, and obviously we'll obviously come on to all things House did, Mark. So obviously last season you won promotion via the playoffs in the Eastern Senior League South, and you're back in the Essex Senior League for the first time in 17 years.
Yeah.
Just take us through the last, I'd say, 6 months or so, because it's been an absolute whirlwind for you guys, and it's great to see you back at Step 5.
Yeah, very up and down season last year, believe it or not. You know, we had a lot of, we'd sort of made home a fortress for the first time, and certainly in the time I've been the first team manager, it was always we probably lost the league the year that Hashtag won it a few years ago by our home record, because our away form was one of the best in the country. We'd only lost 1 game, whereas last year we flipped it around and we were superb at home, but we weren't as good away. But it proved that if you win your home games, you'll get yourself into the playoff position, which we finished really strongly to get into, and then it's a free for all, isn't it? The form goes out the window really, and getting to the final, it was the achievement in itself. And then for us, it was a free hit really, and I'd said that to the players in bigger games last year against Buckhurst and Ipswich Wanderers, and we took a couple of heavy beatings in them, but all the time we were learning what we could do and what we couldn't do against them. But when you go into that one-off game, the mindsets of what every player and everybody there is so different to an average league game. You know, you can have one player switch off or one unavailable, and it will always unravel you in big games. But we just went down there, and to win that final is something that we'll always remember anyway, because it's been a long time for a club like Halstead, and it's a special achievement, which has allowed us to go into, obviously, as you said, the Essex Senior League, which has been a long time in coming. And we are learning as we go, which is always has its ups and downs. So we need to accept as a group that this year we're going to have good moments and bad moments, and we've just been through a bad one, but we've came through with a really good result Tuesday, which was fully deserved. But the run we've been on has been slightly unlucky. So yeah, that's just the nature of the beast. So we just need to sustain, and we're really enjoying it. But we're going to have some tough days, which we had again down at Buckhurst a few weeks ago. So.
Mark, how did you? I mean, obviously in that game, I think everyone thought that they were going to win it, didn't they? Really?
Yeah.
To be fair.
But the playoff final.
Yeah. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, if you were a betting man, then you'd have put your money on the house. I think an absolute fortune back.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone expected you guys to win, but I mean, it just goes to show, how brilliant you've done to win down there. And I think they were just so gutted about it. So we all know Docky Mark down there, and I know that they were gutted, but I think it was very hard for the FA to do what they've done. But I think Buckhurst still going up probably has made the league sort of. Yes, it's in league better as well, but I know a lot of people were quite shocked with the decision, weren't they? That people were saying, well, "What's the point in the playoffs if you're going to put a team up anyway?" But it's just the way it works, isn't it? Really, and it's good that they're up there, really, especially for the local football. But no, I thought that was a great achievement, mate. That you've done there, really, really done well.
Yeah, we had to be really striking about for me, and they proved it again a few weeks ago. Buckhurst will be right up there this year. They're having a wee, probably like ourselves, just adjusting. We have a lot of players unavailable, which has been our own doing at times. There's been a few injuries. I think Buckhurst have had one or two. They're settling down now, and they'll start to win a lot more than they won't. So they're definitely making the league better. And when you watch them, the way they clicked the other night, they have to be in this league as a minimal. I said. For me, they're primed for step 4 in the main. There's a couple of things they could probably do a bit better and would do. But you want to be seeing teams like that progress, because as a group of players, you don't get sets like that at this level too often that are so loyal to each other and have came down, persevered at step 7, and as a club progressed. So yeah, we won that day. Nobody will take that away from us. So we deserved it, absolutely. But for me, you want to see teams like Buckhurst going through the levels as well, because they're great to watch. So yeah, I wasn't overly disappointed. Nobody will take away what we achieved, and that's for them to live with. But we got what we needed, and in the end, they probably got what they deserved. However it happens.
Yeah, I think it's very important that you get the things off the pitch right, and then they'll come on the pitch as well, won't they? I mean, that's good with a lot of clubs, even from professional down to sort of grassroots football. I think they've got so many good things going on down there at the moment. They've got their ground up to scratch. They've got the floodlights. It's a nice little setup down there. And yeah, like you said, I think they could go on to bigger and better things. Perhaps like yourselves as well. You just got to keep battling and try and get your strongest side out every week, which is hard. I mean, I run a Sunday team, so I know exactly what it's like trying to get players, your best side out. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, I've had my strongest side out. Well, maybe one game, then the following week, completely different bunch of players as well. And it's very hard.
This is it, yeah. I'll be honest, I inherited a bit of a mess when I took the first team job at Halstead. There was a lot of cleaning up to do. A lot of things had happened wrongly before. So it took a little bit of time to settle it. And then, as I say, the first year with a proper go at it, well, we'd cleared it out and started to adjust the squad. We went very close to getting promoted that year, but hashtag just proved too good. We ran them all the way. And then with a couple of years that were interrupted. And then last year again, we've got ourselves into a good position to go forward. So, but we've done it in a way that it's sustainable. And that's what's always mattered to me. I know what I'm doing as a manager. I've always believed that. I've got an eye for a good player. how often we get them out in the pitch week in week, as you said yourself, is difficult. Because they've got so much going on in their lives, they'll always have something, especially after lockdown. There's so many weddings this year and stag do's to go to. I've never known anything like it, but it's starting to settle down now, and I think you will see, hopefully in our results, there'll be an improvements, because, and I spoke to my group about it Tuesday night, we've had a few really serious injuries in the last few weeks, which is a shame, but I'm starting to not accept that players are unavailable now for holiday weekends, and that's got to have gone. You've got a summer to do that. We're going up a level, and we need to work harder to compete in that and sustain. So I think the players get that, and the performance Tuesday with the players we've got missing was just outstanding. To go 2-0 down and they hit the bar. But even in that moment, I knew we would settle and get into the game, but we bounced back so well, and there's so much character there that I feel we'll be fine, but we're going to have a lot of hard games this season. So we're dealing with mindsets now, aren't we? But I need the players, and I spoke to them. I need the players to be fully committed to that. So
it is very hard, though, because, like I say, especially with holiday season, a lot of people nowadays don't tend to go away in the summer. They tend to go away in September, October time now, and whether it be for financial reasons or what, I don't know, but it is, like I say, I run a side and I know what it's like. I've got, with myself personally, we've got so many players away. Last week we ended up playing a game with 9 men because we were already there, and we just said we might as well play. And to be fair, if we'd have tapped out a full strength side, we'd have won the game. But unfortunately, the game got banned about 62 minutes because we had 3 players went out injured in the end, so we couldn't play with sort of 6-7 men. So I know what you're saying, but how do you attract players to your club? Like, because obviously, is it? Because you've got a lot of teams around the actual area, haven't you? Not far away, and it's very hard, when there's a small area, to try and get players to come and play for you.
Just touching on personnel there, we've just played back-to-back games with Clacton before we played Stanley the other night, and we went away and lost 3-2, and we had probably about 5, 6, 16 to 18-year-olds starting and on the bench. But I had enough of a nucleus there that we were very, very, very unlucky to lose the game. But flip it 7 days, and I had 4 boys that would absolutely start the game unavailable by their own doing. We competed just as well, but Clacton definitely deserved to win the game because they were just better in the final third than us. So, but you're standing there watching a game that if you've got the players that really matter, you don't lose that game. So that's really hard to take home with you because that's not the plan. But we reference sort of recruiting players. We're in a difficult position because we're wrapped around clubs that are higher level than us, and we've got a lot more financial clout than we have. So you've got your Sudburys, your Braintrees, your Coggeshills, Whittam's, and the like. So it's hard, but thankfully I've got a good relationship with players, and we're very loyal in both ways. I am to them, and sometimes too much, and they tend to be to me. So and sometimes we'll go away and try different things. Like I've just brought Joe Older back, who'd gone to Stanway at step 5 at the time, and I had him on loan before for Haybridge, and I've just brought him back, and he's a player I love to work with. So they go away and try, and sometimes realise that it's not always been enough, and they come back eventually. So we just rely on stuff like that. You always get a bit of friends, of players, and it's just however it works, you need to make it work. But we certainly struggle geographically with the teams that are wrapped around us, so it's quite hard. But we've got a lovely crop of young players now coming through, and that's the blend I'm trying to make, and I'm being forced to do it a little bit too early or quicker than I wanted to. But we've got a couple of 16-year-olds that are now starting, phenomenal talents, and will be great players. I just don't want to burn them out or ruin them before they're sort of making it, So it's just need to be careful.
Yeah, it's good that you're giving you're in a position where you can give the youngsters an opportunity because obviously I don't know what sort of finances you've got down there or budget or whatever, but if you could bring the youth players through, then that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's always important to me. We've got there's a plan in place. Well, when I took the job, there was a nucleus of boys from Halstead, and they'd been really loyal to the club, and it's easy to play for your local team, isn't it? You don't need to travel too far for training and whatnot. But they were consistently finishing just outside the promotion places, and eventually, there's a wee bit of contempt sets in, and it's not that they're not great lads, but you just sometimes need to switch it up. So I ended up moving most of them on. So I've had to go a little bit further afield, but certainly as a town, we want to get more, because it's one of the few clubs that you get 22 youth teams or whatever. There's a full access into senior football there. There's not many clubs that offer that now, so we need, hopefully in the next few years, a crop of Halstead boys coming back in, because that helps. If we'll get great crowds as it is, but it would be even bigger if the more local players you've got. So we're trying to flip it around, but there's a process and a time frame to that, isn't there? So.
No, it's just, like I say, it's good though that you can get the youth players in. I mean, did you lose many from last year, Mark?
I lost. You'll obviously you'll know the name Chris Harris. He's a guy that could have left me years ago and gone and play levels higher. I lost him. He actually only played about 8 games for us last year, so we got used to playing without him. We lost him to Bishop Stortford, but that's a hell of a step. And he's since gone on a few weeks ago and gone to Cheshunt, which is a league above again. You're happy to let players like that go. They've got to go and progress to that level. So I had to acquire a few. I was desperate for a couple of centre halves. I got both of them that I was looking for. I've since lost the both of them to what looks like long-term injuries. So I think I'm destined not to have natural centre backs at the club, but and then we've picked up one or two, but we've not lost many at all now. I lost Joe Thomas. JT is better known as, was a seasoned step 5 player, decided to come over. Decent enough lad, but it was a wee issue a few weeks ago. Being part of a squad's important, and you need to dip in and out of that at times, and that wasn't really an agreement. So he's gone on to different things now, so that's fine. That's football. But no, I haven't lost many at all. No. It was a good retainer. Was getting promoted. It gives everybody was looking forward to this challenge, So.
No, so you look like the Buckers still. I think they've got most of their squad, haven't they, from last season?
They've been together for years, and that shows. And that's, I always remember the first year I took the Halstead job, but the team I always spoke of it was Woodbridge, who've gone on and are really strong in the Thurlow Prem. They're a bunch of guys that were under 18s together in the 4 or 5, 6 years. Their triggers are perfect. They know exactly what they're doing. They're so hard to beat when they're like that, because it's hard to create that. We spend so little time with players now, pretty much to a club. They're only training once a week now because people's commitments and the travel and expenses attached to getting to training. So you don't get a lot of time with these lads. So the more they know each other, the better. So teams like Buckhurst, and they always have an edge for me, because if they've played together for that long, the movement off the ball as well as on it is what tends to make the difference in the end. So.
I just think, like I say, with Buckers still, I think a lot of people thought that they might lose some players if someone comes in with a bit of money, or offers them some money to go and play elsewhere. They would have done, but I think they've got such a good understanding there that they just all want to play there, which is brilliant. And hopefully, you've got the same sort of thing with your guys in the years to come.
I find it quite funny on that, because obviously you're watching Buckhurst early in the early part of this season. I think they lost the first 3 games, and some of them quite heavily. And then the Chinese first start that they're all going to break up and they hate the manager. And I went to watch them, and they lost just before they hammered us. And they lost 4-0 at home to Redbridge, and they couldn't have been further for the truth. Of course, they weren't happy, but you could just tell it was one of their nights. They weren't getting their chances. They were getting punished every time. People that know what they're watching, you're like, there's nothing wrong here at all. They're just going to, once they get into the groove, they'll be absolutely fine.
And it's like any promoting side, Mark. You need time to adjust, and then there's probably no shame in taking a couple of heavy beatings, because you're trying to adjust to the level. We lost 6-2 home to West Essex, and honestly, Adam, at 65 minutes, I think it's 2-2, and it's a hell of a game. There's nothing in it, and we get a sending off, and they get a penalty. I think it was. They went on and won. And if you read the Twitter report after for both clubs, everything they hit for 30 yards was going in the top corner.
great side, but we matched them in every department all the way until this end, and then they just, but it wasn't even getting opened up. They were hitting everything for 30 yards. Nothing we could do about it. It was just one of the days. It just went for them, and we conceded 6 penalties in 6 games, and I'm not saying they weren't penalties, but just naiveties that were giving refs decisions to make, and we'll get that. We'll sort that out. It's just the quicker thinking of the players in this level. So we know it's fine margins. That I would have hoped we would have had a few more points because the performances have been better than just to have 3 wins out of 8 games, But that will come. We're fine with that. We're learning and we're more determined. So yeah, it's always going to be different when you step up.
But Mark, would you like to have seen Ipswich Wanderers in the Essex Senior League? And how do you think they would have last season?
I think they're better suited for the Essex Senior than the Thurlow Prem, to be honest, personally. So obviously that geographically they probably had to go that side, but yeah, they've got a bit of everything. They've got a bit. You can see why they won the league. Buckhurst just playing, outplay teams, but Ipswich have got players in there that can switch it up and physically do mentally get into your head. Different dynamic, but they can also play. I mean, they're devastating when they get into it as well. So, but they've lost a few games, so it just shows you. They've lost a few, and yeah, but both you'll see them and Buckhurst be pretty strong in both the premiers this season for sure.
Have you seen a different type of quality in the Essex Senior League rather than the Thurlow man last year?
Oh, it's a step up for sure. Yeah, a lot of really good sides in the league this year. As I say, West Essex, some cracking players in there. Even Sawbridgeworth, we played them in the Vaz. Now we quite a few missing, and we tried a new system. I wasn't too fussed about. You want to win those games, but I've used the cups to switch things up a bit. And yeah, the Sawbridgeworth team I played and beat the FA Cup a few years ago were really poor. This lot are pretty decent. So you're looking at them early in the season, thinking you wonder if they would be one of the teams you could get at. No, they're going to be hard work. So no, I was really impressed. I've watched Takeley, Stanway, a couple of great strikers going forward, really lively. I've not seen a poor side yet. Redbridge were excellent. Buckhurst, yeah, we know what Barking can do in their day. So it's a good little locally, a really competitive side.
You got Romford there as well.
What's that? Sorry, what was that?
You got Romford in there as well, haven't you?
Yeah, Romford's the one I've not seen yet. I've just heard they are really, really decent. There's a lot going on down there at the moment, so they look like they're probably. I know a few of the boys at Enfield. Obviously, they've got great resources. They're proving that. Romford, Buckhurst. We played Saffron Walden in the cup with very little in the game, but they've got a lad, Soliforri, which I'm sure you know. Wee Solomon, he's a pleasure to watch. He's a game winner. I managed him, believe it or not, down at Haybridge 2011. What a wonderful lad and player. It's great to see that he's been doing so well. And again, cup game, we changed it up, but he had 2 moments and they beat us 2-0, so he's really important for Saffron Walden.
I was really surprised that he dropped down from step 4 to step 5 because he could have took the step 4 promotion with Hadley. Yeah. And he decided obviously to drop down to step 5. I mean, he would have done well at step 4. I mean, not like they needed him the other night, to be honest, but I think he would have done well at step 4.
Where have I gone now? Sorry.
You turned your video off. There you are.
I'm back. He's but not only a great player, he's a great lad. Honestly, I've worked with that many players. That's probably 11, 12 years I've managed now between reserves and first team. There's some of them that stick in your mind, and I always said if I ever got a job that was in an area I could entice him, he'd be one of the first players I'd have gone for because you just remember him, how good quality wise and how decent a person. So yeah, it was nice to see him the other night. I think he remembered me. I'm sure he's seen a few faces, but I soon reminded him that we had worked together before. So yeah, great player. But he'll be really important for him. And I think I was speaking to Jason. He's made about 8 or 9 goals for them, but he's not actually scored yet. Well, he does know how to hit the net. So when he starts scoring, it'll be even better for them, So
yeah, it will be. It will be. You mentioned, obviously, you said about Buckhurst Hill. Obviously, that night didn't really go very well for you guys at all.
No.
Did it kind of come across as like a show, like where you both? Was it one of those games that basically you could tell it was two promoted sides that are trying to adjust their level?
No. What it looked like was a team that were. It looked like a team that were very consistent to how they play, and we looked like a disjoint of players that were pushed together and put into a system to try and stop them and still try and have an impetus that you can't get away with that against teams like Buckhurst. You get down there on a Tuesday night. I've had to flung a few lads in that hadn't ever played against a team like that, out of position as well, and we tried our best to get into their mindset, and we actually started in the same vein as we did in the playoff final. We scored first, albeit it was a brilliant free kick. It wasn't from open play, but you kind of get the feeling early on that it was going to be a really tough night, and once they scored and then quickly added to it, they just took us apart. And the only thing I'll say about that, Adam, is it's very rare you come off a pitch. We played against Leicester a couple of years ago, but in the FA Cup, which we've obviously got the attachment with Norwich, and they're a great side that you would expect that. But I had a 16-year-old coming off the pitch that had to play, and he was like a rabbit in the headlights. He didn't know what he'd just been playing against. But equally had a 39-year-old in Nick Miller who's played at all levels, and he was basically saying, "I've never played anything like that," because they were just so good on the night. So when you get it for both ends of the spectrum, you know you've played against a good side, and you just need to hold your hands up sometimes. So could we have done better? Of course we can, but sometimes they beat you down, and that's why I referred to it like last night with Rangers. Once your energy goes and your belief goes, you're against sides like that, you're in deep trouble.
Definitely. Obviously, this weekend you actually host White Ensign, which will be two things I see for this game. One, it'll be nice for you because obviously they got that big Rangers connection. You've got a little bit of Rangers following there, haven't they?
Yeah.
But also, this will be interesting because obviously this really isn't the Ensign that you know where Brett was there. It's a completely different management setup and a new team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly that. So we had great games with Brett's White Ensign team and that. Chairman and that, they're lovely people, and I hope to see them at the weekend. But this is a whole new group, and to be fair, they're competing. So a lot of whispers at the beginning of the season, but they're going to be one of the whipping boys. I don't think there's any of them in this league, realistically. But White Ensign with a great result against Ilford, high scoring game. So they obviously know where the net is. We just need to exploit them, and at home we've been pretty strong. We've lost a couple of sent off, a couple of penalties against. But it'll be interesting to see but I believe they'll be a bit younger. And we'll see what they bring. But we feel in a good place after Tuesday's turnaround because we were in trouble after 15 minutes. So yeah, but it'll be nice to see. And obviously the Rangers connection has started, and Brett, obviously before he went to Brentford, he was contacting me all the time about advice. What can I do? How can I get these Rangers fans on board? So yeah, I knew all that was going on because he was looking for advice through that period. So yeah, it'll be nice for that. So
definitely. And then obviously the week after you got another team that you know very well in Athletic Newham. Yeah. Obviously, who you had some fierce battles with in the Third and Division 1 South. Obviously, they've kept the same manager, more or less the same group. Yeah. So that has got the ingredients to be another terrific game.
Well, we've already beat them 1-0 at home in the league. That was a brilliant game of football. It was, you sometimes you look at the result and think 1-0 couldn't have been much in it. It was a great game to watch, good intensity, and we were good for that. And to keep them out at the other end is hard with Coney and that in the pitch, and he was dangerous, but we fully deserved it that day. So my concern's the facility we're going to. We're actually, Adam, we're going down there not only next Saturday, but the following one we've got Clapton. So obviously that's potentially 2 Saturdays in a row. But I know they had to come to Wivenhoe the other night to reverse a game. So I don't know where that stands really, what we're going to do. So
yeah, whether it be because they could reverse it to yours, couldn't they? Or we could reverse both games potentially. And
obviously we'll offer them the facility for Athletic to reverse it, because we need to get the other thing. I don't know if you've noticed that we had 4 free Saturdays in the first 6 of the season. It's not helped the momentum for us to build, so we're only getting that now. So we need football. We need football every Saturday.
I've noticed that with Walthamstow, I think Barkingside have gone through similar things. It doesn't really. You've gone again, Mark.
Somebody's trying to.
Yeah. I think we've all experienced it a little bit, because it just doesn't help with the FA competitions and everything like that. And you might be out of a competition, but your opposition are in or in still the competition. So I've had it with Walthamstow. We've had about 3 free Saturdays already this year, and we're only just in mid-October, not even mid-October yet. So
crazy. Honestly, it's crazy. So we'll see. Have they seeded the pitch down at Newham?
I believe they have. I think they've still got to do a lot of work on it. But then, I think I do feel a bit sorry in a way for Clapton and Athletic Newham, because they don't own the pitch. It's down to Newham Council. But then again, as we've seen, Tower Hamlets and Sporting Bengal have had the same issue at Mile End, because the Sporting Bengal game against Brentford was called off because of the pitch one time. These council pitches aren't maintained properly, and I think a lot of that is down to budgets and obviously this cost of living crisis and everything like that. I think there's a lot more to the stories than clubs can't get their pitches correctly, but they've got their. I know from running Tower Hamlets Football Club for many years that you've got your hands tied behind your back, literally, when it comes to council pitches. There's not a lot they can do, and with all these budgets and cost of living, I mean, don't be shaking your head there.
My great Adams with the league for allowing it. They're allowing it because they'll come to places like ours, which is a brilliant stadium to go to, with the stand and the effort that goes into that. And they'll criticise that the pitch is like a metre short or something, and you need to go back and get it sorted. And it's not at all. But then you're turning up at these places and they've been allowed. I don't understand it. I really don't. So it's not. The Clapton one a fortnight on Saturday worries me less, because we can reverse that because we haven't played them yet. But Newham, I don't know how that works, because we've already played the home game on paper. So we'll see. But it's just they're the issues I don't want to be worrying about. You don't have to worry about the squads, and you know what I mean. So
I think the problem is with a lot of grounds in London, Mark, is obviously if you go out to places like Houses and other places, even though you've got clubs in the surrounding areas, you've got your village or your little town or whatever. I think the problem is in sort of our neck of the woods, in like East London, that area. There's just not many grounds available anymore.
No,
I mean, that is why that's why you've got Athletic Newham and Clapton having to play at certain places like that.
Of course. And Whittam have Hackney Wick have had to come up to Whittam, haven't they? So it's crazy.
And I think the councils are looking at it. They'd rather keep disabled people and the elderly and pump money into that, rather than, unfortunately, the football pitches. But realistically, it's down to. I mean, I don't know how much they charge the club to play each game there or for the season. So the money that comes into that, surely they must be able to maintain at least to a certain standard.
You'd think so. I mean, because it costs a lot of money to upkeep Halstead as a stadium. The demands that are put on them, and you don't always get funding in that. It's very hard to get the funding. So the floodlights and the pitch, and it's so much work. So I know that I'm privy to some of the meetings that the committee have, and it costs a fortune. So you want to get that. You want to get that sort of replicated by turning up and playing at decent venues. And I know it's very hard. So they need to find a solution. Couldn't they have gone and shared with Brentford, one of them, and things like that? 4G there, I know.
Maybe a 4G pitch, maybe the council get one down. That's going to cost a lot of money, but they'll get that money back within a couple of seasons. I'm sure they will.
But it's printing cash, isn't it? It's a cash machine when you get the amount of usage you can get. So, yeah.
It's a shame, but I hope the games go ahead. I know I said obviously I feel sorry. I do feel sorry in a way, but I do see both sides of it, because obviously clubs could do a lot more to make sure the pitch is maintained. They could push these people and things like that. And I think there's, in a lot of cases there, they don't. So
we've obviously had it with them before, and Fire United were there before them get moved. But we were just told that whole sports centre was sold. It was an area that was getting sold off. So they're never going to put money into it, are they? For the upkeep of the pitch. They're just trying to drain it till it's gone. But obviously there's been a delay in that, I suppose. So but then you see things like, is it East Thurrock that's sitting there overgrown now, not used? That used to be a brilliant ground to go to. Used to love going over there and watching games. Scouted a few games for clubs there, and it's sitting there, nobody playing in it, So there is options.
There is options. There is, and obviously May and Baker have got their facility hopefully coming soon as well in Dagenham. So
yeah, exactly that.
Definitely. Okay, well, we're going to take a little bit of a short break for our radio viewers. Our YouTube viewers will be back. Obviously, for our radio viewers, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes here on GFS. I seem crazy what I'm about to say. Yes, that's going okay so far. In a minute, we'll do shout outs in a minute. So, and then we'll go on to more football.
Lovely.
Topics. For our YouTube viewers, by the way, next week, hopefully, there will be a referee special. As we saw yesterday, they're going to trial adult body-worn cameras at adult games in grassroots level. So it'd be interesting to get some referees' perspective on that next week. So hopefully tune in for that. Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to fund it, mine, but.
Adam, I tell you what, I've been, other than the ref that had us over at Oakley that night, I've been really impressed with the refereeing this season. Mark could step up for sure. And that's me having 6 penalties conceded in 6 games. So, but that genuinely, I think the standard of the refereeing for us against last year has been different level, really. So
you do get a lot of the same officials though. Between the ESL and the FLO now.
Oh, the cluster we're getting at the moment I've not seen, so which has been quite refreshing. As I say, the boy that done the Oakley game didn't really ref it well, put really poorly actually. But other than that, we can't really complain. Which I've had my few issues with referees over the years. So.
Well, I've seen. How's Arsenal doing, Damo?
They won 1-0, mate. They won 1-0. So
does that mean they're through?
I think so, virtually. Yeah. I mean, I was good looking to going out there. Me and Elisa thought it's such an hard trip to try and do. You have to fly to Oslo and then get a train up to Bodo, and when you look at yourself, it's just a lot of hassle. And there's only 404 tickets, believe it or not.
You should have asked Pete. He would have probably sorted something out for you. He's got Norwegian contacts.
Yeah, I know. I looked at Zurich and it was in St. Gallen, and I looked at this one, and then PSV I actually looked into, but I thought that they still had a non-vaccine ban. So until I found out about 3 weeks ago that you can go to Holland without being vaccinated now. So I was like, that's great, but it's just, I'll wait till we go through and see we get in the next round, and hopefully it'll be Spain or something like that, or Germany.
Or Glasgow, you might get Rangers.
Yeah, it'd be great. I've always wanted to go. I've never been to Glasgow. I've been to Edinburgh. We've done all the stadiums, Hibs and Hearts. And the reason I like Hibs is because I used to like Aberdeen many years ago because of Champagne Charlie Nicholas.
Yeah.
And always used to follow them. And then we always used to have this thing at school, Celtic and Rangers. And I used to say, I just go to Celtic because they were, green and white, and they were a historic club. And never, even though I should really support Rangers because I'm
that's the club connections with Rangers.
Exactly. But I went out to Edinburgh, went around at Murrayfield, brilliant. Then went to Hearts, said, "Can I do it?" Like, walk around stadium, and they were really not very welcoming or anything. And I thought, didn't like their attitude. And then next day I went to Hibs. I said, "Look, is there any chance of just looking around the ground, maybe getting a stadium tour?" And the club said, what happiness is you. Clap along if you feel See you later.
We are happy. And that was Farrell Williams with Happy here on GFS. Just to again to our radio listeners, that we will be doing a referee special next week. So we're looking forward to that after the news about body cameras being worn in grassroots games. We'll have more details about all that on next week's show. Coming up, we're going to be talking about more things football, and we're going to now do some shout outs. So Mark, who are you going to shout out to first?
Oh, I wasn't aware of this. I'd give a wee shout out to a couple of people at the club. Adam Munns came in as my number 2 in recent weeks. Great addition. Really enjoying working with him. He's training with the boys now, actually. So hats off to him for that. Yeah, really, really nice lad, and I'm enjoying working with him. So Mark Juniper's a kit man at Halstead. He's doing a sterling job this year, getting all the senior teams their kit sorted for match days, and young Sophie we brought in. She's flitting in and out as a physio, which has been really important. And just the committee at Halstead, really, they work so hard behind the scenes to make everything as smooth and comfortable for us on a match day, which is all we can ask for. So, yeah, a lot of good people there that I just want to thank. Don't always get the chance because we're busy match days and whatever, but really loyal people and loyal supporters that we've got. So, shout out to them all, basically. So,
yeah, okay, thank you, Damo.
So my lovely other half, Elisa, who's sort of sitting in the room next to me. Everyone at Barkingside Football Club, everyone at Haint Athletic, and a big shout out to our good friend Martin Brazier, who had quite a difficult day yesterday, but he's feeling better, and so shout out to Mark and the curtains.
Yes, we're missing the curtains tonight, aren't we, Ian?
Yeah, I was going to say curtains. You beat me to it. Yeah, big love to Martin. Kaz, whose foot is still not great, and all the listeners and everyone else who knows me.
Yes, okay. Shout out to Kaz, by the way, and well done to her AFC Wimbledon women's team, who beat my London Seawood girls 3-0 last night down at Carshalton.
Oh, right.
Fair play, better team won. So well done, Kaz, if you're watching or listening. Shout out to my other half, Charlotte. Love you lots. Hope you're feeling a bit more, after that last night. Shout out as well to Pete, obviously, to Scott, and obviously to Martin as well. And shout out to everyone in grassroots football. We all make a big difference. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, right. Let's go on to Damo. Just have a quick chat with you. We'll come on to Barkingside in just a minute. Hainault Athletic, what's happening there?
Yeah, I think it's okay. We obviously got promoted last year, and it's very hard team that we're playing against. Had a bit of a poor pre-season. Yeah, purely to the backside. Couldn't hire no pitches because the pitches were in such a state because of the weather. Pitches cracking and everything else. We had a couple of games arranged, but unfortunately we couldn't play them because of, like I say, the grounds. The grounds when they've got the places that we were playing at just pulled the games off. So we only literally played 2 games, literally a couple of weeks before the season started, and obviously we found it hard. We had a lot of players, like I was saying earlier tonight, unavailable. Honestly, we got a squad of 20, and we've been getting 12 every game. Last week we only had 9 players, and then we had 10. One of our injured players turned up. But then, if we took the lead, we were doing really well. And then obviously adding 2 men or 1 man less, then we lost a couple of players through injury. And the score at the time was 5-2, like I say, with a few players missing. And in the end, we just had to, unfortunately, the game had to be abandoned because we didn't have enough players to carry on. So it was one in weeks where it was really difficult last week. But yeah, I mean, when everyone's back, we should be okay. So, but it's been, like I say, it's been good though, playing against really good teams and only losing by the odd goal in 2 of the games anyway. And last week, obviously, the difference we only had like 8. You're really at them 10 players, 2 of them are really injured anyway, so played with injuries. So full credit to the boys, really, to be fair.
Hey, and Barkingside. Let's have a chat about that because they had a narrow defeat last night in the Essex Senior Cup 3-2 to Takeley. From what I understand, it was a very, very, how shall I say, it's very tight game, and Barkingside were pretty unlucky.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it's been our story so far this season. Again, we've got new players in, new coaching staff, and everything seems to be going well pre-season. The training, everything went really well, and we've had a couple of up and down results. To be fair, I think the last game I was at was the what game was it? The Basildon Town game, and played really well, went ahead, and then again we just conceded goals, and that's the problem with Barkingside at the moment. We concede goals. We've got the talent there. We've had that for the last couple of seasons, but we've had a few injuries as well. But being where we are, it's definitely not where we want to be. Near the foot of the table, to be fair. I know we've got a few games to play, but no, I mean, hopefully we'll start turning the corner. We've got to really. We can't. We want to be challenging and for promotion, not no disrespect to this league or any of the teams in this league, but we want to be back up in Essex League where we were for many years. But it's like I say, unfortunately.
How's Dan Jones getting on? I had him for a short spell at Halstead. He's a good lad.
Yeah, he's doing well, but I think he can only play certain games because he's
Yeah,
so,
that's right. Yeah, could be a good player, that boy. Yeah.
Good. So obviously, so we mentioned obviously you've got White Ensign this weekend, Mark. Just going to have a chat about the Essex Senior League in general. So I think personally, have a look at the fixtures. You've got obviously a derby up there in the northeast of the county this weekend between Little Oakley and FC Clacton. That will be a tasty affair, to say the least.
Yeah.
And yeah, you've got West Essex and Ilford, which I think stands out. The one that stands out for me though is the now leaders Enfield against Buckhurst Hill at Woodside Park in Bishop Stortford. Now, I think that Buckhurst Hill turned Enfield over 3-0 in the FA Vars last year.
Yeah.
Now, this has got ingredients to be an absolute corker of a game.
Yeah, it does. It does. I suppose Buckhurst have been a wee bit inconsistent. They won 3 or 4 around beating us, and then they've lost 3-1 at Ilford on Saturday, which Ilford are a bit like ourselves, and on name they've been in the league for a while, but that's a whole new team. That was Ongar Town that have come over, lock, stock and barrel, and I felt we were going to be similar to them this year. The one thing they've had over us at the moment is consistency of squad, a lot more than we have when you look at their team sheets, but they're like ourselves, they're learning as they go, and they've beat Buckhurst Saturday, which I was slightly surprised about, to be honest, because I thought the dynamics of both sides, Buckhurst would really exploit and probably overpower them, but it certainly didn't happen. So they need to react really, because I think they would probably have expected to do better in that game, but they don't. They seem to do well in other than the Ipswich Wanderers games last year. They seem to do well in the bigger games, certainly in the cups and that. So that'll be a hell of a game, yeah, for sure.
With Ilford, the Guildford game there that you mentioned, obviously both sides know each other very, very well, considering obviously Ilford's mainly the younger town team. So, but that's very to be a cracker.
But yeah, true. But Enfield have got a lot of experience, like Tyler Collett have managed, a great lad, Bramsgrove, and that real experience there, haven't they? So, and that might tell in the end. But yeah, it depends what Buckhurst we get. But we know that Enfield will be 8 out of 10 every week at least. They're solid, clinical. So it'll be interesting to see the result come the end of play, that one for sure. Are you going to that one?
Sorry. I won't. Well, when is it again, Mark?
Saturday.
I will be at Barkingside on Saturday. Yeah, I'll be at Barkingside, unfortunately.
Yeah.
For the record, I'll be at Biggleswade.
All right, okay.
How's
Walthamstow? By the way, I've not seen how's Walthamstow getting on. I know they've changed management, haven't they? But
yeah, we're doing okay. We got beat 4-0 the other night by Hadley, and I think it was one. It took fair play to Hadley. I think they're the best side we've played.
Right.
Because yeah, definitely they've still got that pace about them they had in the ESL, and they're a very, very good side. Okay, Walthamstow could have done a few things a lot better, but Hadley were the better side, and I really can't complain about it. Since Nicky has come in, Nicky Ironton, there's been more of it's been more positive performances, positive feel. We lost the first game at AFC Dunstable. Okay, fair enough. First game, mix and match team it was. But we played Didcot. We outplayed them on Saturday. It was 1-0, but we outplayed them, and it was one of the better games that I've seen.
Yeah.
So I think things are looking up. It's going to take a few weeks for the squad to gel again, but Walthamstow will be fine. They'll be absolutely fine.
Good.
Really
Good.
to see.
And nice to have the new challenge that we're having. So
yeah, it is, and obviously it's nice on a personal level because I've never really done. I did a little bit with Barkingside, obviously, as Damo knows, but I've step 4 I've never really got my teeth into, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's lovely to go to. I mean, Biggleswade, it's going to be nice to go there at Biggleswade FC because there's about 4 million clubs in Biggleswade. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it on Saturday. It's going to be nice to go to a new ground.
Yeah, good.
They play at Bedford, so that's going to be interesting.
Early setup.
Yeah, up to Kenilworth Road for a little while. Don't have a stadium tour.
Oh, I've done Kenilworth Road a couple of times. Yeah, trust me, I'm not going to go back there again for a while, unless we go up this year. So yeah, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So Mark, what is your expectation for the season, mate?
It's funny, I had a chat with the chairman last week after the Buckhurst game, really, because we beat Newham, we beat Ilford, we'd lost in the last minute in a penalty in the first game at Barking, who we expected to be there or thereabouts. So we started relatively well. Then we lost that heavy game. I just had to calm it all down a wee bit because we need to sustain in the league. The attendances are up. We've got a great attendance at the ground, one of the best in the whole area. When you factor in the Step 4 clubs, so obviously that will sustain if we sustain at the level, and that gives the players time to adapt. Can they go forward and week in week out and play at this level? And I'll learn who can and who can't, and it gives me time to adjust and look at squad if I need to, and adapt. So sustain and maintain our place in the league this season is an absolute minimal. But I've asked the club that my intentions and my character is to always go again. So I'll be looking to put something in place where we can potentially, in a short enough period of time, but not, I wouldn't very much doubt it, but this season for sure, that we could attempt to get out of this league, but there's a time frame attached to that. So yeah, that was the chat we had, and we're in agreement with that. So let's hope Tuesday was the start of something that can be setting us in the way to sustain in the league. So that's the plan, which I'm comfortable we can do.
That sounds great. I mean, have you got a reserve team down there?
We do, yeah. I basically flipped that whole thing around in the summer because we've had a set-up for a few years with a group of players who were great little sides, but they sort of became their own entity really and just wanted to play for themselves and weren't really taking the opportunity to come in and support the first team. And there was times last year we really needed them to because we were short of injuries or whatever, and they would rather play for the reserves than play for us. So that's not how it works. So I've basically put in place that we moved that whole situation on, and we've started working closely with a group of managers and an academy that's working really well. So when I talk about the game the other night in Clacton on Saturday with 5 or 6 16 to 18-year-olds in the squad and playing, that's all came from there. So it's been a breath of fresh air. Young Pierce Anderson, the coach for my reserve manager, he's a joy to have around. So as a wee shout out for Pierce as well. And just really enjoying it. It's energising the whole place. These young lads are hungry and are fearless, and the group's enjoying that as well. So it's just knitting it together, and that's what we're starting to see. So really encouraging, and I'm really enjoying working with these new people. So
that's good stuff. I mean, I can never understand that with this first team reserve teams. I mean, we had it at Barkingside. We've had a couple of reserve teams. obviously had a great reserve team. Jordan Harris, obviously the manager of Man Baker. He was running it, and they had a really good setup there. And sometimes some of their players did step up to the first team. Good link there, but obviously, unfortunately, a lot of them players went to the down at the level at Barkinson. So obviously, when the opportunity came to do them, like Man Baker, he did. But we've had a couple of teams over the years come down and do a reserve team. I think this year we're actually being a lot more close than what it used to be. But the problem you find is a lot of the reserve teams don't always play in sort of like an Essex Senior reserve. They'll go and play in like an Essex Alliance League or something like that. And sometimes it's just the quality is just not as good as what the level that the first team are playing at. Exactly, and you also get, like you say, the bit where they just want to play with their friends. But a lot of the reserve teams don't even play in a stadium, so I don't understand quite what the point is in staying as a reserve team if you've got an opportunity to go and play high level. I was always told to go and play the highest I can.
Exactly.
Even at 47 now, I'm literally playing a friendly division in the Essex Sunday combination, believe it or not. So and I love the challenge going up against people that are half my age, but at the end of the day, that's what it's about, isn't it? Playing the highest level you can.
I was getting in a situation last year where I was, and again, you're getting some call-offs as late as the Saturday morning, whether they woke up unwell or whatever, or even with the COVID situation. So there was more demands than ever. And you'd be messaging a reserve player that your reserve manager had recommended that has been playing well the last few weeks or whatever. And you'd message them and they would come back saying, initially they would say yes, and then they'd follow that with a text saying, actually, do you know if I would get any minutes or how many minutes I might get, because I'd rather play 90 for the reserves. I just can't get into that mindset. I've never seen anything like my life, and I've got boys in what I would class as the first team squad that will travel 4 weeks in a row, not get on the pitch, but they're there, committed, loyal, waiting for the moment. And then you've got this mindset, and it doesn't work. It doesn't support. We don't have, and I've said it before, we don't have the finances to have a massive group of strong players. So we are always having to tap into our reserves, and I want to do that. Otherwise, there's no point having them. But when they don't want to give it back, there becomes a sticking point where it's not going to work. So we recognise that, and it's changed. And the flip side is I've got a young lad that we're looking at probably putting back into the reserves that's been in my last 4 squads on Saturday, and he doesn't want to because he's loving it so much. So it's a complete flip, which is so enjoyable for me. It's making my time more enjoyable as well. So but it's strange. It's strange. The mindset's strange.
No, exactly. So, how many do you usually have each game, Mark? I mean, what is the squad allocation you had on a regular basis? Is it sort of like 15, 16 or
16? Obviously, we can carry. I went with 15 last Saturday, but we were stretched right through the club, so the reserves were playing in the cup down at Main Baker Reserves. So we were fully stretched quota-wise, but we had a bench of 15, and the reserves went with 15 as well, actually, which was good considering I've lost 5 first-team players to long-term injuries already, which is unbelievable. It's just the way it's going. So we're really having to tap into, and then so it's a knock-on effect, isn't it? So we're still getting a full quota. Probably we get with full 16 on Tuesday, so it's good. We're in a good place.
How are you feeling with like the standard of pitches and obviously we spoke about it a little earlier on, but I mean with the way the weather's been at the moment, is this how some of the players are getting injuries? Like the playing on sort of hard ground or
actually been a bit of bad luck. There really is. There's a lot of bad luck attached there. There was a couple of really nasty tackles last Saturday that I could say, was a bit ruthless, and 2 of them will spend 6 to 8 weeks minimum. Both of them will miss, but for me, they were nearly leg breaks. But other than that, they've just been unlucky. With one has a wee ACL injury in his knee. Jake Brown again has pulled up, and he was unplayable the first couple of games of the season. A big player for us. I've not seen him since week 3. Young 16-year-old who's setting the world alight. He scored twice against Ilford. Haven't seen him since. He's got a bad knee injury. I don't know whether it was a lack of momentum of games. You just don't know. We're relying on him to do a lot of physical stuff away from us because we only get a couple of hours a week together, one night a week. You just don't know. It's just we're in that phase. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with the travelling, how do the players cope with the travelling, especially when they have to come down to sort of like East London, that sort of thing?
Because obviously the club is set in Halstead, a lot of my players are Chelmsford based and Malden based, Braintree. They pretty much clump in and go together. So they'll travel in cars. The cup games I've always tried to go in coaches and that, but that's very rare. It's so expensive now. So yeah, their commitment's fine. They make their own way there. So fair play to them, you know. So yeah.
Oh no, exactly. I mean, because like I say, I mean, there's a lot of the travelling. I mean, I know Barkingside have to do quite a bit of travelling. I think the furthest I think they go up Holland on Sea or something like that, up that neck of the wood.
Yeah.
And that is it. And
not anymore because Holland.
Not anymore. They went to the north. Yeah.
No, exactly. But I mean, I know that that's Wivenhoe, yeah, which is quite a lot. But I think the good thing about it is the league do try and get them games played over the weekend rather than midweek games, you know, which I always think that's crazy.
As I said, Buckhurst on the Tuesday night wasn't easy with a few that couldn't make it, and that's the difference. You know, we're going there in a playoff final on a Saturday end of season. It's a different mindset. It's a different group. They've all been working the Tuesday. Some of them can't get there. You know what I mean? And that's where it becomes quite difficult. Even little locally, we went to on a Tuesday night. That's a trek even for us. Not as far as the boys coming out of London, of course, but some of my boys work in London, so it's a hell of a trek on a Tuesday night. So that's what can make certain games difficult. And sometimes fans don't need to see that. It's not their prerogative, but there's a lot attached to what might be a poor performance or a player that's not on his game a particular day. There's so much wrapped around that, you know. So that's where we just need to calm it down, really, isn't it, as managers? So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, have you got, obviously your coaching staff and I mean, how do you feel that's going at the moment with the people that you've got in helping you?
Well, as I say, Adams came in, Adam Munn, who was at Stanway with Danny Slatter, then went on to Takeley for a period of time. And Adams has been a breath of fresh air. Actually worked on a corner set piece the other last week, and we scored the first goal at Stanway off that. So that's brilliant to see. It's great for him. Players have taken to him straight away, and he's just a good energy. And young Pierce that's running the reserves, 21-year-old, way above his years, and I basically have him in every squad that I can. He's not got a game, I bring him in to support us and be part of the group, because if I drop players down, I want them to know him and know his players. So I'm just trying to create this big, and I've always been like that. I try to create one big family scenario. It doesn't always work, and you'll always get people that don't like it, and that's life. But the majority are running with it now, and it's putting us in a good place. So, but they're good lads to have around for sure. So I'm really enjoying. And the flip side, I've lost a great friend in the number 2, Pete Travers, that I had for years, and we promoted together, and that was just circumstance. So that was a big loss to me personally, but unfortunately, football and situations do that, don't they? So you just need to keep going. And the new challenge was too much for me to anticipate leaving myself. So we've just gone forward as we have. So
yeah. So everything at Halstead, is running smoothly, and obviously you said you've got a good fan base as well. I mean.
Yeah, we're getting about 250 to 300 at a home game, which is outstanding. I would always want more, but that's just me and the way I am. But I suppose if we start putting a run of games together, and as the winter kicks in and people are away less, then we might start to creep that over 300, which would be lovely. But it's great for the club. It's great for the club, and they're really enjoying it. So that's how it's important that we sustain ourselves in there. So, but me being me and the nature of my personality, I just want to keep going. So, but we need to be honest about it. There's some big clubs with major finances in the league, so there's there's ways that you can do it, and there's ways you can't, and we need a bit of time to put together the plans that we have, because we can't just go out and buy or acquire the best, because it's just not possible. So it slows the process slightly, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but when you look at it, really, to be fair, there's some clubs up there who are doing really well who haven't got budgets. So it just goes to show. I mean, it's nice to have a budget and be able to get certain players in, but it's not always going to be the be all and end all. I mean, like I don't think. I mean, you know, I look at West Essex, Red Bridge, them sort of clubs, you know, and perhaps at the start of the season, even though Red Bridge just missed out last year, people look and think, you know, look at them. They've got no real money coming in. Haven't got massive crowds, but they're up there on merit, and that's what it all boils down to at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good group of players. That is, they're a great side to watch, and the good side to play against. And I watched them win at Takeley. I left it 3-0. I know it finished 3-2, but and then they came over, and as I say, we had a great game with them. So they're the sides you enjoy playing against and seeing. Yeah, it's enjoyable. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, but as you say, it's not always down to finances. It's sometimes you just. I had a reserve team over at Haybridge. It was one of the best teams I've ever managed, and of course, we never one penny to spend. And I just had a group of players that just absolutely knitted together, and we were unplayable. When I left in December, we hadn't lost a game or dropped a point. We were beating teams like Needham Market 7-0, and you just knew if we got to half time and we were in the game, we would unravel them, you know. So that's very hard to come across groups like that. But when it does, it's brilliant to be part of.
Oh yeah. How you find? I mean, obviously it's a different league this year. I mean, how are you finding? Is there different sort of each team you play against? Are they playing completely different to another team? I mean, not just so much in formation. I mean, of what you've seen, you know, in the past, you've had like sort of 3 divisions in one division. You know, I mean, you've had the sort of the top 4, the middle 4, and then obviously the bottom 4. I mean, with the bottom 4, I mean, for the last few seasons, you know, Sawbridge was down there, but I mean, they seem to have turned it around brilliantly this year. I know one of our old players, Dave Etchery, is playing for them. And like I say, they seem to have turned it around a lot. I mean, what would you say that's the same this season, or would you can you see teams where you think they're definitely going to be challenging, or they could be near the bottom of the season, and you know you've got your mid-table teams as well. I mean, what do you actually think of the quality and the standard at the moment, Mark?
Yeah, really high. I'm really impressed. Probably more technical than I gave credit for. Obviously, I was so committed to getting to know the Thurlow South teams and the league we were in last year and the few years before that. So I didn't get a lot of time to go and watch the Essex senior teams, and it was always talked about like it was boom and bust and back to front. It's absolutely not this year anyway. So there's a lot of possession-based teams and technical teams and managers that really know what they're doing, and that's the part I'm loving, because you're adapting as the game's going on. Whereas I felt, and no disrespect at all, but there was a definite split in the Thurlow South where the top half, your Ben Fleets and your Wivenhoes and your main Bakers, you always knew you were going to get tested technically and good sides, and White and Zines and Little Oakleys and Newhams before they came up. But there was teams down the bottom that pretty much play the same way all the time, and pretty predictable. So I'm not finding that, and it's not because I've not played these teams before. It's because they're adapting during games, which is as a manager and a coach, I love that. That keeps you switched on and keeps your interest in the game as such. Because you know we're watching as well. We can get bored of a game. I'm sure you agree with that. You know, there's certain games we watch that are painful. So when you're fully tuned into the game because you're having to work stuff out, that's enjoyable for sure, and that's definitely what's happening this year. So
you definitely think the standard of football is better this season than it was last season.
For us, yeah, definitely. We lost 5 games in a row there. I think 4 of them by the odd goal or something like that. We would have won 4 of them last year, but we got punished for a blind sideways pass that just got intercepted in one pass in goal. the strikers are more clinical. There's more tempo. Yeah, it is better. It's definitely a step up. But there's still teams in that Thurlow South that Stanway Pegasus. They're a cracking group of players that are top of that league at the moment. And there's other teams in Benfleet, great technical side. There's teams that can come up and compete for sure. But that's always the case, isn't it? But I think consistently in the 8 games we've been involved in this year, and we've had a tough start, by the way. If you look at it on as the league stands at the moment, but I don't think we've played any teams around us, the bottom half. So we have certainly come up against decent sides. Barking were technical. Oakley are old school, very high tempo, fast forward players, and they turn into good areas that suit them. They're probably more of the old school, but then your Alfords just try to play all the time, and yeah, good variations of Essex, like we said. Clacton can play and mix it up, and good in both boxes. So good, yeah, it's good standard. I'm really impressed with it. But there's a lot of money in the league at the moment, so you would expect that, wouldn't you? So
Yeah, definitely. So regarding your future and everything that's going on at the club, what is your actual aim? I mean, I know it's only early days, but what is your aim? Is it within a season or two to try and get up into sort of like step 4 football, or would it be stability with the club and maybe 1 or 2 seasons in the Senior League, then maybe jump? I mean, obviously, like I say, a lot of clubs that do go up into step 4 obviously need a bit of financial backing, and obviously with the crowds that you get down at Housewood, I'm not saying that goes towards the budget or anything like that. I mean, how do you what is it that the club and yourself want to achieve for the future, or in the future, I should say?
But as I said, short term, staying in the league. That'll probably be a year or two, and then start to put in place a plan that can take us forward again. And I fully believe we can do that. It'll take time. We just need to work a few things out, and it's as I say, I've said to the chairman, so settled in here. I've asked him to go away and work hard. When the moment comes to go again, that we can, and we could just stay in it. So we don't want to do it the wrong way, and we can't do it the wrong way. It won't work like that. But I know that we know what we're doing, with all due respect, and if we get it right, and I've got a couple of young players coming through that are so exciting, if we can retain them and build them into this league and this level of football week in, week out, we'll be a very exciting team in a couple of years, and there'll be a young team, and that's sometimes fearless, that can go forward with. And there'll be senior players there that have had the time in the league to get their head around it, and hopefully you put something a bit special together, So always push forward. As long as I'm the manager, it will always be pushed. I promised them, and that's a hard thing to do, when I got the job, that I would get them out of that league, and that's the first time in a long time, and we managed to do it. So I have promised them that I will fully intend to go again, but that'll take a year or two for sure.
Yeah.
Do you find? Sorry, Ed. Just wanted to ask you one more question, Mark. Do you find nowadays there's not many old heads playing at this standard of football anymore? I mean, when I played sort of this standard football years ago, when I was in my sort of 20s, you always had an old head of maybe a 35-year-old or a centre half or whatever playing, who would get Jill the players up, that sort of thing. Now I'm just finding I don't really see anyone probably over 30 really playing in sort of in the Essex Senior League or in the furlough none. I just don't know what's happened to them sort of type of player. I mean, like I say, I remember when I was a teenager and I used to play against some of these teams, they always had a grizzly centre half or and a centre midfielder. But now it just doesn't. You just don't see these players anymore. It's all youth, young players. What do you feel about that? Do you think change?
Funnily enough, we've got last year we had 3 what I've classed senior players. One I've still got, Nick Miller, who Nick's that old. I played with him, right? So that tells you he's just about to hit 40, but he's physically outstanding. He's the perfect professional. Honestly, what a lad, and a great player. So he came on at half time the other night and just settled the game down and done what he does. And he's been at the club a long time. So he's coming into the last elements, and he's brilliant to have around because he just loves playing football. Last year I had Greg Strong, who was Saffron Walden's longest serving player. Again, a wonderful boy. I was gutted he went in the summer, but he was spending a lot more time on the bench, and they find that hard. And the last one to mention, and he was old school, and I'm really upset the way it's unravelled with Gary Vidette this season, because he's been injured a lot the last year or two, and he wasn't able to commit to pre-seasons as much. So he was lagging. Fitness was getting ahead. He was starting to struggle, and we were hopefully going to have a process to get him back fit this year, but for whatever reason it just wasn't going to work, and he sort of slipped away, which is really, that's the biggest disappointment out with losing my number 2 that I've had so far this season. But they're dying breed, absolute dying breed. You just don't get them anymore. So it's young, you're having to adapt to that. And with that, you get a wee bit of you lose that commitment, because that old school was committed completely. So that's the whole switch we're having here. But it's too easy for them to go away and miss a game, and then they can't understand when they're not playing the week after and things like that. So that's the different player we're dealing with now, isn't it? So, but we still love them. That's why we do it. So, what about yourself? Are you finding that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. I mean, I used to go over before I, got on the broadcasting side. I used to watch a few of Redbridge's games under Terry Spillane, and you used to have the Glenn Golbys. I don't know if you know Glenn Golby, a big old centre half. I mean, from what I gather, people were saying his knees were gone 10 years before he actually stopped playing football. And he turned out and he kept on playing, and he's part of the most successful side that got into the FA Cup a few years ago. Adam will remember that. And you just don't see him anymore. I love to think it's a shame, because you just used to, a lot of them sort of players were, sort of remind us of the rugby, East London, Essex sort of thing, and they were really good players, and they were beasts as well. They had everything about them. But now, obviously, it's more of a technical type of football now. I think top amateur semi-professional. So you don't get them big old centre half who's the ball, or just basically play to the head of the ball all game, if you get on and tackle and then do it. But I've noticed a hell of a lot of change over the last 10 years, definitely.
I've got so much time for the Greg and Gary. I've still got them in my group chat. I'd have them back tomorrow, because they're just people you want to have around. Greg's obviously a Saffron Walden boy. I suppose he came over to watch the cup game last Tuesday, and I told him he's still in my group chat for a reason. I'd have them back tomorrow. So you can't get enough of that. But it's definitely evolved. It's definitely got a lot younger and fast paced, I suppose.
I've got a player who plays for me on a Sunday, Christy Thomas, who played at a very good level years ago. He's played for a team called Southgate years ago. I mean, Adam might have known the history of them. I'm going back in the 80s, they were sort of a semi-pro club, and Brimsdown Rovers. And he still plays for me now. He's 58 years of age on Sunday.
Brilliant.
He's playing in the top division, and occasionally goes down if he gets his foot trodden or something like that. Someone plays into, but he can give it as much as he gets, and it's just a pleasure. And that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, he hasn't played vet football. He wants to, like myself. There is vet football out there, but I just want to keep playing normal. But I call it junior football, because I just feel I can still do it. But as you get older, the bones in the muscles do hurt. You can't walk. But
definitely.
You'll have just a couple of painkillers and you're back out there, mate. So football to me changed a hell of a lot. And I think it's still a good standard. But I look at some of the players now that were around 20 odd years ago, and I think, wow, if they were playing the standard of football now.
Definitely.
They would teach players a thing or two. Definitely.
Yeah, when I first moved down here, I signed for Whittam Town, and then I went over to Malden. And the standard of players we had then, it was very, very high. We used to go to places like Harwich, great sides, honestly, great sides. So yeah, it's changed massively for sure.
And
Yeah.
you look at some of the setups as well, some of the grounds, look at Millfield, the old Aveley Stadium compared to what they've got now. I remember Tilbury, all them Grays, Thurrock, East Thurrock, you name it. I mean, I remember used to play them sort of grounds. And you just look at how a lot of them have changed now. Like I say, you've got Aveley there, you've got the brand new stadium. And I think football is definitely going in the right direction. I'd just like to see a bit more money coming down the leagues into grassroots football.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, they're going to talk about next week about the referee situation in the Garden, where Hammers or wherever it is. But I just, that's all good, and I can't knock the FA and the referees for wanting to do something like that. But I still can't believe that all grassroots football clubs haven't got a defibrillator.
Yeah, no.
With the amount of money that's going around professional football in the game, I still can't. I know proper clubs with clubhouses and that sort of thing, a lot of them have got them, but just your normal Sunday morning football, if someone has that sort of thing and happens to them on the pitch, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. Completely. Hard one for them to get right, by the way, but yeah.
I mean, I know obviously funding and that sort of thing is hard, but it's just one of the things, But how did you feel about your games against Barkingside last season?
We lost 2-1 down there, didn't we, in early December time, I think it was. We were terrible that day. We get Joe Thomas sent off. Calvin went off with his head split open, but it was a weird game. We just never got going at all. And you guys went into a 2-0 lead. I don't think you were in great form as well on paper. You'd lost a couple.
No, he wasn't.
And then we sort of scored in the second half, and we were trying, but we were really poor. That was one of the poorer days at the office last year for sure, and definitely deserved to lose the game. But I've always felt with Barkingside that really competitive. If you catch you in the wrong day, you're going to suffer a lot. So I do see the results sometimes, and they really surprise me, So I've not managed to see you this year, but I knew I spoke to Dan in the summer, and I knew that you were hopefully keen to get in and around it again this year. So
I mean, the thing is, Mark, we've got, I know I keep saying it, and people might think I'm a bit biased, but we have got a very talented team down there, and there's some very talented players who should be really, in my eyes, playing a higher level. But
very athletic team last year.
And they stay very loyal to Steve, and they want to play for the club, and they want to a bit like Buckinghamshire, they want to get as high as they can with Barkingside. But I don't know what it is. We just get to a stage sometimes where we're playing really well in one half, and in the second half, we'll have a good first half, a bad first half, a good second half, and vice versa, a good first half and a bad second half, or first half, I should say. And I just, with all the talent we've got down, sometimes we just don't have the love of the green. And, I've seen this a couple of times this season. I've been really disappointed. And then there's been some games where we've really played well. So it's just, it's really hard. I think we'll get it right in the end. I'd like to do it for Jimmy, the chairman, because he puts a lot of his, a lot of hard work into the club. And we've got some good people down there. It's just, unfortunately, we just want to get it right on the pitch, And in time it will happen, but it's just sometimes frustrating when you've got a talented players and they're not doing as well as they should do, And that's the hard thing. But
I think the biggest thing that last year proved to me, if you can get as many maximum points at home, like we only lost twice at home last year, if I remember right, to Buckhurst and Ipswich, and I think we drew one against Holland that the floodlights went down with about 14 minutes to go at 1-1, and we were absolutely laying siege on them. We would have won the game. Other than that, I think we won every game. Pretty much, we might have drawn another one. If you make your home a fortress, you'll get yourself into a playoff position, and then it is a lottery. And yeah, I've always felt with Barkingside, it must be hard to see with that running track around it. It's hard to get that environment, isn't it? I suppose. So that's certainly, I feel, going to places like that, it would be hard to to get that. On the flip side, coming to Halstead's a great away day for everybody. So for me, they up their game. The environment they're playing in, and the stand and the atmosphere. So that makes that hard, and that's taken a while for us to get our heads around equally. So you can look at it anyway, but if you can get your home form consistent, you'll put yourself in a good place.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Being athletic like you are, you're always capable of getting results away because you'll hit teams in the counter and that. So,
yeah, I mean, it is hard playing, when you've got a running track down there. But I mean, the thing is, unfortunately, it's just running. Like I said earlier in the show, there's just no pitches available now. There's so many teams that sort of like step 7 now who want to go up the pyramid, but they can't find grounds. And obviously, part of the process is you have to play in a stadium the season before. If you're in, say, the Essex Alliance League, you have to be playing at a stadium that season if you want promotion that season. Yeah. And some teams have to pay like £10,000 to £15,000 a season just to play at a ground.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. How they're financing it, I don't know. It's really hard work. But what I wanted to ask you, Mark, is what has been your highest? What's the word? How can I put it? The highest achievement or the best moment in your managerial career, and then afterwards, what has been your worst in your managerial career?
The highest was definite. The highest was what we achieved getting Halstead promoted. A club that I feel deserves to be at this level and on and off the pitch. So as a minimal, I've seen worse run clubs at higher levels in Step 5. So for me, it was an absolute must to get that, and achieving that was massive. And that's where all the issues we had last year. People will never understand the stuff we were dealing with at times, and we found a way. The lowest for me was probably my first managerial job at this level when I had Heybridge Swift reserves, and I was manager under Barry Lakin and Brian Statham, who came back to the stint, and we'd put together this amazing side, and I felt that team, we were obviously going to, it's not your remit to win leagues and whatever's as a reserve manager, but you want to do it as you're progressing players, and I had this group of players that were just special. Chris Harris was one of them that's now at Stotford and Cheshunt, and I've had a few of them with me at Halstead, and I just would have wished we were able to complete the project there before it got unravelled by silliness behind the scenes with the club, and it made us have to walk away because, as I say, I left in December and we were hammering teams, and I think that whole group of lads, and they were all local to Heybridge and Malden, would have gone on and been long-serving first-team players at that club, and they would have done just as well, if not more than what they have done in the time since then with players that aren't for Heybridge and Malden, and that disappoints me because it was such a great side that would have got better and better together, and they that was taken away from me getting success as a manager and them getting that chance to progress at the local club. So that was really disappointing for me. So yeah, definitely.
No, that's good. That's good. What about in your professional football team or in the professional game? What's been your high point and your low point?
For me as a player, or for my football club, Rangers?
Both.
For Rangers, it was getting. God, there's been a lot with Rangers, but getting to UEFA Cup final back in 2008 in Manchester. I'd gone everywhere with Rangers, home and away in Europe.
Is that when they took over Manchester that time?
That's when we took over Manchester, yeah. I was there. I was actually at the game. But that whole season and the travelling and the friendships you make and just the experiences when Alan McGregor made that save in Bremen from just unbelievable. We just looked at each other and knew, and that was the quarter final, I think, and we just knew we were going to go all the way to the final anyway. And equally, probably the lowest part was the final, because it was such an anticlimax in the stadium. The way they had distributed the tickets, and the Manchester City stadium wasn't as big then. That end behind the goal wasn't as big. It was just horrible. The atmosphere in the city after was vile. It was just so the high and low all within the same season with Rangers. Yeah, being a Rangers fan's easy, but
what about last season?
last season, unfortunately, it was amazing, but I never got to experience a lot of it personally because I had a lot of work commitments and Halstead commitments, so I didn't get to go to many. So it's different watching, but obviously to get to, and it just shows you how quickly football spins. Because for us to be at the UEFA Cup final, Europa League final in May, and then we stood there watching us lose 7-1 last night in a substandard performance, it just shows you how quickly football, and that's the same, some very similar group of players. So that's what football does, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was amazed when I watched that final. I mean, to be fair, Rangers had 3/4 of the stadium, and Frankfurt just had that one end, didn't they?
Yeah.
And whether we put it down to Frankfurt being very loud, because most of the Rangers fans have been drinking all day, so they probably didn't have a voice left. But Frankfurt, I mean, to be fair, I mean, it was both teams done really well. No one expected
Rangers should have won that.
to the final.
Do you know the mad thing, Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have done.
We had Frankfurt at their quietest when they equalised. We took the steam out of the game. It looked like we were going to, in that one stupid moment, not shutting down the front post, and that was it. So, but that's it in a nutshell. That's what these teams do.
The penalty.
That was kind of written in the stars, that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't. Where is he now? Is he playing? Has anybody took him on?
French, I think.
Is he?
France, I think. Yeah.
There you go.
Did you go to Seville, Mark?
No, I was offered the Friday before. My cousin managed to get tickets, and he offered me to go over, but I wanted to watch it with my son. A wee shout out to Harry, who I love with all my heart. That was his first experience at 15 of such a big game, so I was never going to not watch it with him. So, yeah.
My missus went over there. Do you remember that day? Well, I think I mentioned it. My missus went over there, and she couldn't get tickets. She went with her dad and her cousin and that. Obviously, they couldn't get tickets, but what they did is they went. That stadium they opened up for all the Rangers fans. They could watch it on the big screen. They charged €10 a pop. Yeah,
is that Real Betis Stadium?
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere in there, she said, was just unreal.
I've gone away with Rangers, Adam, to a group stage game in the Champions League in Barcelona, and there's 25,000 Rangers fans in the city just for a group game. It's Villarreal in the semi. It was just unbelievable. We took over. But as I say, it's easy to be a Rangers fan because it's such an institution. There's fans everywhere, you know.
That's why you call the People's Club.
Exactly.
I think as well, obviously, a lot of Chelsea fans go abroad with Rangers as well, don't they? And then obviously, only just
Millwall, I think.
Yeah, and not only just obviously their own Rangers' own fans. Obviously, you get Chelsea and that go with them. Obviously, a lot of the Northern Irish loyalists who don't support Rangers but follow them because of the connections there. They go abroad with them as well. So there's a lot of yeah.
Well, funnily enough, when we went to Villarreal, back in 2007 or whenever it was, I can't remember. We flew into Barcelona, and then the Wednesday night, Chelsea were playing Barcelona. So we had a night together with all the Chelsea fans before we went down. That was an experience.
I think away game's brilliant, isn't it, Mark? A European away game. I mean, I've been to Dortmund. I've been to both stadiums in Munich, the old stadium and the new stadium. I've been to Anderlecht. I've been to, where else have I been? Sporting Lisbon, PSG.
Yeah, I've done all them. Yeah.
Barcelona, the new camp.
Yeah.
Just think that it's, you can't beat it really. But
have you ever done the San? Have you been to the San Siro? I've never, and I've heard it's amazing.
No. Never been there. I've been to the Bernabeu, but not on a match day, on a tour.
Yeah.
And round the Gish ground's fantastic. I mean, not the new camp into the top flat. I mean, the new camp's not actually around the Gish stadium.
No, I wasn't. I'm not impressed with the new camp, if I'm being honest. It really wasn't. I've been a few times.
Yeah, it's concrete. It's like a car park, though. Looking from outside, it just looks like a concrete car park.
Exactly.
But but I do like the away games. But unfortunately, Arsenal got drawn, like I said earlier, really not a rubbish draw, but not really places that you really fancy, to be honest. Apart from Eindhoven, but yeah, hopefully we'll get someone decent in the next round, and it'll be a nice little away trip.
Oh, you can't beat it. Special. I had a couple booked with my boy. My brother was going to fly out with his boy for Glasgow, but COVID kicked in. We were meant to go to Leverkusen. I was going to take my boy to the first one away. So, but that'll come. We'll get that next year, hopefully. So.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It's always so. Some of these away days, obviously, special. I mean, I'll ask you, Mark, from a Rangers perspective, is obviously you get the European nights, but is it even more special when you've got, like you've had the last week, your Battle of Britons sort of thing? Are they more special than if you're playing like a Barcelona or a Real Madrid because it's the Battle of the UK?
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but certainly you've seen a massive change in the atmosphere in these sort of Battle of Britain games. I went to Rangers Leeds all the years ago. I went to the game at Ibrox. I didn't get tickets for Elland Road. There was proper hatred then, because you never saw these teams on the telly every week. You used to listen to the radio and you would see them in Match of the Day or whatever. But because we're watching, and even the foreign teams like your Steaua Bucharest would come to Ibrox, and you just hated the name and you just hated everything about them because that's what was instilled in you, because we never knew about the players and very little. You would hardly see them in the telly. So it was just, I think now we're so familiar with teams, it's like a real respect. Certainly it looks like it on the pitch. So even like Rangers looked almost timid against Liverpool at times last night. You'd never have seen that in years gone by. So there's definitely been a change. Obviously, Glasgow's got the Old Firm game, which if you've never experienced, you must try. It's like nothing you'll ever be involved in. It was always better when we could. I mean, I've been to Celtic Park loads of times when we could get 8,000 fans there, and the same when they would come to Ibrox. The atmosphere's unbelievable, and so is the tempo of the game and the hatred feel within it. But it's only within the grounds, For me personally, as soon as you leave, you go to work on the Monday with guys that were Celtic fans, and you get on with it. There's always people that take it further than that, but that's life. But in the main, that's the rivalry, and that's why we love football, because it's so intense and we care about it so much, especially coming from somewhere like Glasgow. So, but I don't feel that the Battle of Britons is nowhere near as intense as like when Rangers played Leeds and things like that. And I definitely think because we're so familiar with players now, it's changed so much.
Yeah. Mark, did you think, like, looking at it, I mean, I've noticed that the last few days, two things really. One, the standard of football, looking at certain teams now that were big guns years ago, like the Anderlecht, Steaua Bucharest, seeing them play in the Conference League, which is, I think personally, is amazing really, to see how far they've dropped down. The standard of football.
Yeah,
like last year's final, was it Feyenoord versus, I can't remember, Roma. Feyenoord versus Roma.
Yeah,
two big clubs like that.
Yeah,
playing in that competition.
But
and the second one. Sorry, Mark.
But it's the financial divide, isn't it? You look at Rangers and Celtic. If they win the SPL, they get £3 million. You get £100 million to get relegated in the English Premier League. There's Spain's got no money. They're all dropping away now, these teams. The money's in the English Premier League and the Championship, and I think there's a bit creeping back into the Italian leagues again. But it's just the gap's getting too big. It's getting too big and unhealthily, because there's so much clout going on here. And it's great for the English teams because they're living in the moment, but we need to get a balance somewhere, because these teams are massive and they're dropping away to, like you say, playing in conference leagues and things like that. And it's just a way to try and get them back into Europe. But, until about 2 or 3 years ago, teams didn't want to play in the UEFA Cup because it used to cost them money. Obviously, Rangers have done well last year by earning about 40, 50 million pounds off getting to that final. But that's a one-off, that's a one-off. And yeah, if they don't reinvest that, it's so these teams are just, it's going to get worse. there needs to be a balance, you know.
Yeah. And something I've noticed as well this week, I've been seeing on I follow casual ultras on Twitter, and the amount of fights that are happening between rival fans in Europe is just after the person getting out of hand. I mean, today I actually see something on there from FC Zurich versus PSV Eindhoven.
Yeah.
And Napoli v Ajax last night. I just can't believe that this is. I mean, I know it's we always, unfortunately, in Britain, we get a bad name, don't we? Whether it be up in Scotland or in England, we always get bad press when things like that happen. But we're finding it happening all over Europe. I really was shocked because even the smaller clubs are getting involved in it now. And I don't know what you think about that, or Ed, what do you think about that as well, mate? What's going on?
I just think, from my experience of travelling, and I don't know if you've seen it, the policing in Britain's excellent. The way they police the games, really, you don't. It's very rare you get in a position to get in trouble with each other unless it's organised somewhere else. But I've gone to Villarreal's, and Rangers take over that town, and the police started the problems. I went to Osasuna, and they actually put us into a section of the stadium. They didn't even look at our tickets, and they put us in where the Osasuna season ticket holders were. So they're coming in to get in their seats, and we're in there. And I mean, in thousands, there's like 1,000 of us in that corner. Of course, they're going to start fighting. It just goes off like a rocket. So it's a lot of it's how bad. And we were always told the Italians are awful. When I went to Fiorentina for the UEFA Cup final, it was the best policing I've ever seen. They just stood off us and they communicated and they just let you do your thing as long as you weren't going over the top. But the Spanish are really aggressive. The French, I've found, when I go there, the Dutch are unbelievable.
I think the French are probably the worst. I mean, did you see the scenes when Saint Etienne got relegated from the French top flight and what that was going on there? I mean, if that happened in, well, not so much England, if that happened in the UK, there would be absolute uproar. There'll be the grounds will be closed, leagues will be suspended. It just, but to them, that's the norm. I mean, a load of half the incidents last year were in blooming France when people were got hit by bottles. They are really bad over there, and people have a go at not so much England, but the UK.
Well, look at the Champions League final with Liverpool there in Madrid. It was a shambles.
Paris,
Adam Hampson, one of my players, went over and he says he was scared, and it was just the way it was policed. And that's I've been involved in that loads of times. So the fans are naughty, and you named a couple of teams there that are PSVs, always been naughty fans, and so I'm aware that they would do that anyway, but certainly the policing doesn't help abroad. So no way.
I agree with that because I've been there with Pompey as well, because Pompey have got that, as you know, Mark, that reputation.
What they call the 652 or something? What they call that?
657, because they've had that old school reputation.
Is that the first train out of Portsmouth or something? Is that what they call it?
On a Saturday, there was the first train up to London, so you carry on up north. But because of the old school reputation, we've always been treated like, I'm not going to say the word on there, but you can imagine like it because of who we are in our previous reputation, and I agree. The police and the stewards cause it a lot to kill. I'll give you an example. We're playing Charlton on Monday. I hate going there because the stewards are just. I'm not going to say that again. I'm not going to say the word live on TV and radio, but they literally a few years ago it was dangerous, and literally there was people who were getting literally what's the word, bungled on or taken out just for asking a simple question. It was ludicrous.
No, I've seen it. Yeah, it's terrible. So it's hard to gauge when it's them and when it's not, when it's just the fans. We know there's naughty fans everywhere, but that's
it's hard though, Mark, isn't it? I mean, the worst thing is I could be just an English person in, say, Frankfurt on holiday or meeting people or with work and say Chelsea are playing Frankfurt. If they hear me being English, they straight away will presume that I'm with Chelsea. Now, the old English code, I don't want to talk about hooliganism or anything like that, but the old code, you might have got out in Scotland, if you wore your designer clothes and you stood up hooligan, then you would have a fight with other hooligans. But doesn't. Over here, that's supposed to work, but over in Europe, it doesn't. If you're
No.
walking along with a Rangers shirt or a Pompey shirt or an Arsenal shirt, they will just literally attack you because you're the rival fans.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I was on the train coming back from work tonight, and there was a load of Anderlecht fans. A colleague of mine went to the Emirates today because he had to pick up something from the shop, and he said there was about 30 Anderlecht fans doing a stadium tour. And then, funny enough, as I was coming home from Liverpool Street today, there was about 15 Anderlecht fans, all boozed up, which all in good spirit. You know, you can tell they've been boozing because they stank the booze. You know, really up for it. But you don't know what they're going to be like. You know, there might be a man and his son in West Ham top. You just don't know what could happen. But over in Europe now, you've got to be so careful. I mean, friends of mine West Ham fans went to Frankfurt last year, and they were saying it was such a bloody city to go to. Really was. You know, if you walk down the wrong road and there's only two of you, you get ambushed. And the same thing happened at Wembley a couple of weeks ago, didn't they? With the German fans wearing England hats that stormed into the big pub at Wembley Stadium.
Right.
The Green Man, I think it is, yeah. And you know, pretending they were English fans, and they just all kicked off. You've just got to be so careful with away fans now, to be fair, especially when you're in their country.
Yeah. No, it's it'll always be there. There'll always be problems, you know. It's definite. But for me, that going back to the Battle of Britain and that, it's definitely not nowhere near the same. I didn't feel like that yesterday to me at all.
Yeah. I mean, when mental when Rangers scored, so I thought, yeah, this is what it's all about. Big derby in the Champions League.
But was there I wonder if there's any animosity in the stadium, because obviously with the situation regarding the Queen and Liverpool not singing the anthem and that sort of thing. I just wondered if there was. I didn't watch it literally from the start of the game. I watched it in about 10 minutes in, so I don't really know if anything happened before the game or anything like that.
There definitely would have been. There was tricolours in the Liverpool end, and that obviously they've got a big Southern Irish contingent and whatnot. They've got. There would. I know for a fact there would be animosity outside the ground and whatnot for sure. But it'd be well policed.
Celtic following, haven't they, as well?
They're so used to policing it in Glasgow. We only go across the city for the Old Firm games, and they used to take our coaches all the way out. You'd go on the massive detour out so that you just couldn't get near each other. So they know how to police it up there for sure. Whether they meet in town or whatever, that's another story. But that's more organised stuff, isn't it? So
it's a shame because some of the banners, obviously, when the Queen passed away, some of the banners that I see was quite upsetting to see, really, and wasn't very nice. I'm not a royalist or anything like that, but some of the things that I see, and I think it turns a lot of people off certain things that Celtic are doing and that sort of thing. Obviously, Rangers and Celtic, obviously, they've got that.
I believe there was 3 clubs in the country and social media that didn't acknowledge the Queen's passing, and it was Celtic, Liverpool, and Livingston, who's all the ex-directors from Celtic from years gone by. So it's disappointing, isn't it? But that's obviously their prerogative. But it creates a divide, and that's at the end of the day for them to deal with. So. One
of the things we unfortunately all have to fight with, didn't we? I'm glad you didn't mention Hibs there, Mark.
What's that?
I'm glad you didn't mention Hibs as one then, club.
No. I believe they did so. But I'm really proud of how Rangers presented and present themselves in every department. So especially in that, because it's the right way to do it. So that's certainly where I'm from anyway. So.
Exactly. And you've obviously had those kind of behaviours been prevalent in recent times. Obviously, you mentioned there the clubs that didn't obviously acknowledge the Queen, and obviously I'm not going to go too much into detail about this, but obviously you've had the controversy with the Irish women's team as well. So which is a bit of a stir, isn't it? So big time. Just before obviously we do finish up, obviously you two have been having great conversations about all things football. One thing I wanted to talk about was about the league that you left, Mark, the Thurland Division 1 South. This season, again, a very, very competitive league. I mean, Burnham are top there with 25 points. Obviously, you were the one that they fell away and you beat them to that playoff place last season.
Yeah.
Obviously, teams you would expect to be up there, Stanway, May and Baker, Benfleet and Frentford. Parkview surprising me in 6th, obviously, but down at the bottom, Barkingside and Wivenhoe, I'm surprised, to be honest, are down there. And obviously, Canonswood, 10 defeats out of 11 as well. So overall, from the especially teams I've just mentioned, what's your thoughts on the Thurlow South this year?
I think I mentioned them earlier. I think Stanway Pegasus. So we knew that they were getting talked about very highly last year. I know a lot of the players, really good players, that have dropped down there. They've got a good thing going on. I know they lost last weekend, I think, but I think they've quite a few players unavailable that we were talking about. That would be the only thing that will catch them, is their commitment to midweek games, weekend games coming thick and fast. Well, out of step 7, I don't think they had that so much, but I think they'll definitely be right there at the end. We know about Benfleet and Burnham. We lost to Burnham in the Cup the other week. I put a very different side out, and they played well. They had a lot of energy about them. Their tempo was great. They would have wanted to prove something in the night, because obviously we did put them to that playoff place. I'm not the biggest fan of their management team, just the way they conduct themselves, but they've got a good group of players there that are going well. So I would expect them to continue that. Definitely match winners at any time. And as I say, I think Barkinside's and that will always influence the league, but they want to be pushing themselves higher. I know Wivenhoe, I know Monty very well. I speak to him quite a lot, and he's had a hell of a problem this year, like we did early in the season, with personnel and commitments and unavailabilities and signing players that he thought were committing and then they've moved on quite abruptly. So he's had a real transition there. So he's definitely seen the impact of that. So I just hope for him he gets it going again, because he does things for the right reasons. You know, he wants them to do well. So, and he's very committed. So hopefully they'll get back in the mix somehow. And then there's obviously been changes around at Coggeshall. So we've always found Coggeshall really tough, because Cliff's obviously going into town now, but Coggeshall United, they're all cross-signed with each other, and Cliff loves his derbies. So whenever we played Coggeshall, any Coggeshall team, we were pretty much playing half of the town players, you know, so because it was a game they were desperate or determined to win. So last year was the first time we actually played what I would class as a Coggeshall United team, and we beat them twice, which turned out to be really important points for us getting into the playoffs. But again, a club that's got a massive transition going on in both teams. So yeah, probably won't get there this year. So I would say Pegasus and Benfleet and Main Baker. Main Baker, we've always struggled against, a team that we've always found really hard. Frentford going okay, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Interesting you mentioned Coggeshall there, because obviously they've just brought in Paul Phelan, the former Holland manager, as well. So Paul's always got Holland into a good position in the top half around that in that division. So with his experience and know-how, do you reckon they'll push up now?
Yeah. The big thing Coggeshall United have is the pool of players they can get from Coggeshall Town. I know that in itself has not been as fluent the last year, obviously, with things that are going on there. But when they settle that, and they will, then you're going to have a massive pool of players to pick from, and that can only help them if they get it consistent. And he knows what he's doing. He's a good manager, and I'm sure I've seen tonight that Mike Wallace is going to help him. He's a very, very committed guy to anything he gets involved in, so he'll put all his energy into it. So yeah, I would expect them to improve for sure. But I'm not surprised with the teams that are up there. I'm surprised slightly with Wivenhoe, but then because I know Monty personally, I know how difficult it's been for him.
I think Parkview have done a lot better than a lot of people thought, because let's be honest, second half of last season they were an absolute freefall, and they were lucky really to stay up. So
we lost there very early in the season, and they had 2 guys up front that were almost unplayable that day. But I was noticing by then, I think they'd played 5 games at that point. They weren't tending to travel away. They would play at home, and that can be the situation. Whether they're more committed now and they're getting the same 11 out every week or same 16 together, it helps. I don't know if it's a whole new group of players. I've not seen them, but on their day last year, you could see they were running good teams close, but then, as you say, they piled in second half of the season. But they've obviously gathered themselves together again. But there was a couple of boys, we lost 4-2 over there early on, and the lad up front, we couldn't really cope with him. So yeah, there's definitely again individuals that maybe just have became a better team now, you know.
Definitely. And then obviously down the bottom, so we've got Barking Cannons Wood. A lot of upheaval with them, and they've lost 10 out of the first 11. Big upheaval there.
It's really interesting, that one, because the lad Stephen Wade that's taking the job, he came over to train with us for a few weeks and I'd signed him. He never actually played a game in the end. So he moved on quickly when I wasn't guaranteed. I couldn't guarantee him football, and I hadn't seen enough to be in a position to do that. So he quickly moved on, and within a few days he'd taken that job. So, I mean, last night I think they lost 3-2 and they had 9 men on the pitch at the end. I think discipline's an issue at the moment, but they're saying
interesting tweets as well that were put out.
And interesting tweets that I've seen. So yeah, I think he's going to get a competitive group there, because Stephen's been attached to step 3, step 4 clubs, so he'll be pulling them all in if he can get them. It's whether they can sustain it and consistently get a squad out by the looks of it. But I think they'll probably improve. To only lose 3-2 against I've always liked Wormley. I've always had great games against them. Strong team, and I know James has moved on to Cheshunt, but I believe they're doing really well, Wormley, at the moment. So that's not a bad result at all with 9 guys, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is more or less about it then from the Grassroots Football Show here on East London Radio and obviously on our YouTube channel as well. Mark, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. It was a pleasure. I hope to see you soon.
I hope to see you soon, and good luck to Houston and good luck to obviously up the Rangers. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Definitely. Damo, thank you very much.
No, it's always a pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me on the show. And thanks a lot, Mark, for all your input.
Lovely to speak to you, Damo.
information.
Really enjoyed that.
Brilliant, mate. Thanks ever so much, mate.
Good luck for the season, yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah, and yourself, mate. Good luck.
And obviously all the best, and obviously all the best to you. And thanks, Ian, as well.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to stop streaming on YouTube, and obviously for the radio listeners, we'll be back next week. But for now,